I want to just set the space with a paradox. If you know me at all, you know I love a good paradox. I think the world runs on paradoxes. Paradoxes? Paradoxes. I don't know. Multiple paradox. So here's one for you for today. Creative work will not single-handedly dismantle systems of dehumanization, right? We're going to need the law. We're going to need the medical systems. We're going to need so much other support. And creative work will be essential to freeing us from systems of dehumanization. So here's some definitions. Here's where I want to explain how I use certain terms, because I might use them differently than you've heard them used in the past. So I want to talk about when I say artist versus creative, because I marketed this workshop to both artists and creatives. So in my mind, artists are the people who make art. You know, we are making music, we are making books, we are making stories, we are making dance, whatever it might be. And a creative is somebody who makes or does anything creatively. So we can have creatives working in environmental law or healthcare or marine sciences, but creative people don't accept that things are a certain way. They think outside of proposed structures and assumptions. And so I'd posit that perhaps all artists are creatives, but not all creatives are artists. My tagline for a lot of my work is we are all creatives, because I believe that humans are born with inherent creativity, but these systems of dehumanization that we're going to be talking about today separate us from that creativity in order to get us to think and operate in ways that uplift the powers that be. Disembodiment versus re-embodiment. So we talked about this a little bit with our embodiment at the beginning. But disembodiment means not being connected to our bodies, means being thinking and logic driven, assuming that the body is temporary and unimportant. So disembodiment is supported and upheld by capitalism, which says that our bodies are just for performing, producing, extracting. It's supported by patriarchy and racism and ableism, which ranks our bodies and says which bodies are good or bad. The systems that say our bodies have to meet certain metrics to be valuable. It's supported by colonizer religions that say our bodies are just temporary. Furthered by trauma, which separates us even more from our bodies. Furthered by technology, which encourages us to be out of our bodies. Patriarchy ranks thinking and logic over feelings and emotions. It ranks being in the body as inherently feminine and therefore devalues it. But re-embodiment invites us to trust our emotions and our bodily sensations as equally valid information as about our experiences as our thoughts and logic. So the things that we feel, the things that we know and hear are just as important, just as valuable information to inform us as the things that we think up here. And the systems that we live within don't want us to realize that or act as if that is true. Dehumanization and rehumanization. You're going to hear me use these words a lot. I use these a lot. And my definition of dehumanization is that it is the denial of or the refusal to acknowledge the full, inherent, and profound humanness of oneself or others. And therefore, rehumanization is the acknowledgement, acceptance, and celebration of the full, inherent, and profound humanness of oneself and others. Dehumanization seeks to get in between us and our humanity. And rehumanization is how we build that bridge and we build that connection again. We reintegrate the self and the humanity. And then finally, I want to talk about why I use the term systems of dehumanization versus what you more regularly hear, which is systems of oppression. So it's first of all important to acknowledge that these systems we're going to be talking about, patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy culture, create oppression too. They are in fact systems of oppression, and I'm not denying that. But a big thing that I've come up against in my white affinity work is that especially people who hold dominant cultural identities, white people, men, straight people, etc., is that we struggle to find ourselves in these conversations beyond sort of a harmful savior mindset, that these things benefit us and harm others, but so I can step in because I believe it's the right thing to do. And we don't see the cost to ourselves as dominant culture identity holders. And so I posit that these systems, in addition to privileging some and oppressing others when it comes to certain resources, are also contributing to separating us all from our own humanity. So for me, as a white-bodied person, white supremacy culture is something that comes between me and my humanity. Otherwise, how could I so regularly ignore and be complicit in the violence that takes place against my fellow humans? For men, patriarchy is something that gets in between them and their humanity and convinces them to be complicit in holding men to certain standards and holding women to other standards. So I call them systems of dehumanization for that reason. So here's basically the premise for today's work. The systems within which we all operate actively program us to be complicit in our own dehumanization. When we dehumanize ourselves, we become more liable to participate in the dehumanization of others. We become manipulable. When we separate from our own humanity, it becomes so much easier for us to participate in dehumanizing others and separating them or not seeing their humanity. But when we actively rehumanize ourselves, we become more empowered to see everyone's humanity, and we become much harder to convince to be complicit in these systems. So let's start with art is essential. Many of us have this story that being an artist, when there is so much pain, inequity, and violence in the world, is selfish or irresponsible. We wonder if we shouldn't be doing something more important, more helpful. We compartmentalize. We believe that our